Good morning or good evening to everyone, depending on where you are joining us from. We still have a few people logging in, so we are going to give them a minute or two to get settled and then we'll get underway. Okay, I think we are ready to go. Thank you for joining us today's webinar, Emerging Trends in Using Data Analytics and Visual Dashboards. Today's webinar is being presented by Decimal Point Analytics. We are a leading consultancy firm helping financial services companies achieve their business goals. We offer bespoke solutions and services by combining our technological capabilities and the financial domain knowledge accrued in the last 15 years of our existence. So, before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping topics. Today's webinar is being recorded and we'll be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. We welcome you to revisit the content yourself and share it with colleagues. We will also like to invite your comments and questions. Please look at the chat box on your screen. If you think of a question for the speaker at any point, just type it in there and I'll either pose it to our speaker at the time or hold it for the discussion portions at the end of the event. Today's presenter is Gaurav Gupta. He's the founding partner of Decimal Point Analytics. He has been a part of the financial services industry for the last 24 years. Now, I'm going to hand over the floor to Gaurav, who's going to start today's presentation. Gaurav, it's all yours.
Uh, Thank you, Vipin, for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to extend my very warm welcome to all the participants in our webinar today. It is our pleasure to be presenting, changes, developments that is making a big difference to businesses across the spectrum of various financial services industry today. Our webinar today will cover trends and in data analytics and visual dashboards, and we hope to give some inside view of some of these changes that are happening in some of these processes, and then be able to also have discussions and based on your queries towards the end of the presentation. So before we really jump into the discussion today, I really wanted to draw your attention towards the challenges that are being faced by existing businesses, specifically relating to competition from some of the tech-enabled fintech businesses. Now, given the fact that fintech companies are essentially platforms that are financial services really delivered on a financial technology platform, existing businesses have to compete in this environment. And the way we see it is that the only way to compete is to start adopting or migrating those parts of their business that will release efficiencies and on the back of certain technology-based opportunities that are available. Now, we've already seen that there are a lot of banks and financial institutions moving in this direction, and quite strongly so. So I think this definitely, extends our, affirmation or confirmation that, the trends in financial services today, and certainly no one can afford to ignore. So how does all this apply to PE and VC funds today? In the coming slides, what we would do is, obviously, as we said, we will share certain emerging signs, but we would like to really start with sharing, certain perspectives from industries, pioneers. I mean, some of the emerging for companies that have moved forward in establishing some of these tech-enabled processes. Now, when it comes to financial services and the businesses in them, their foremost let's say operation is managing information and data, and I think in terms of competitiveness, how efficiently that is being processed makes a big difference to the ability of a company to succeed. And PE and VC funds are no exception to such a rule. Coming to the perspective of some of the thought leaders, we've covered executives from firms like Oak Hill, Riverside Company, Neuberger Berman, HIG Capital, etc. And what we really saw is that the emerging consensus view from them is that data and advanced analytics is going to get increasingly more and more prevalent in even a highly people-oriented business such as private equity or venture capital industry. In fact, the increasing amount of competition, and it is imperative that this information or data is processed quickly, and that enables some of these investment managers to take advantage of the opportunities or the investment opportunities presented to them. I think there is a widespread prevalence or use of Excel-based systems in multiple processes within their businesses, and therefore it is important to adopt tools that can handle greater amounts of data and also incorporate a large part of automation. So basically, the ability to run these analytics in a rapid manner is not only creating new benchmark for quick analysis, but also it is providing the right framework to have greater transparency for the GPs and LPs in the business. So after having seen through what some of the the leaders in this arena, specifically in the PE and VC industry, have had to say about these emerging trends, we thought it would be useful to cover some of the industry use cases, particularly the ones which have been reported in the press. I might add that what is being reported in the press might as well be literally a tip of the iceberg. So a lot of work is being done in this space. So I will today start our use case with one on dashboard for portfolio monitoring. This is basically at a French independent private equity firm called Ardian. And what they've done is that they've introduced a system that captures granular data from their portfolio companies. These include things like financial operational data, such as revenue, EBITDA, and so on and so forth. They cover balance sheet information on debt, short-term debt, long-term debt, and other assets and liabilities. And also definitely certain strategic parameters such as acquisitions, etc. Now, all this data is collected and is then either is processed or highlighted in an effective manner to all stakeholders. And what it does is that the portfolio managers are able to track progress made in portfolio companies and devise their strategic initiatives for it. It could well be to support those businesses by additional business development ideas, or make an exit. So these are some of the things where the applications can then be very, very beneficial. The second use case that we would like to cover is one that highlights a dashboard for reporting or monitoring fund level performances. This is that of a private markets investment firm based in Europe. Its name is Swan Cap Partners. So what they've done is that they've created a data platform that captures different sets of data that allows them to get a sense of value of the portfolio efficiently by comparing various operational and financial metrics that stretch across not only private companies but also includes public companies for its analysis. And also, this platform allows SwanCap partners to share such details quite seamlessly with their LPs. And the third case study is about Alpha, a Swiss-based investment firm that have actually created an information system that helps them in their due diligence process. So what Alpha has done is they've developed a system that uses advanced analytics, such as machine learning, deep learning processes to highlight investment opportunities. In order to do that, they ingest data from multiple sources, and those sources could include input on company profile, market potential, consumer trends, and consumer review on products, etc. This application is actually it's a remarkable application of big data and machine learning techniques, and it is a proprietary process, and it has provided a significant competitive edge, specifically while enabling rapid bidding or quick turnaround time for bidding for businesses that come up for investment opportunities. We are aware of one more venture called EQT Ventures that has developed a similar algorithm, which is called MotherBrain. So, as we have seen that there are different instances, different examples, different ways through which private equity and venture capital funds have started to deploy, data analytics and visualization. What we would like to understand is, what are the right ingredients for private equity firms to establish such intelligent dashboards for their day-to-day operations. So before we do that, let's look at what actually exists today. And if we see today, some of these businesses are actually using quite the information through disconnected sources, such as Excel, PDFs, and other sources of information. And what it does is that these are obviously time consuming to process, and often such systems tend to get duplicated in different parts of the business. And whenever there is more than one source of truth, there are always chances for errors and omissions, and specifically these get heightened when the process is being conducted manually. And if there are such challenges, obviously it ends up in coming up as a barrier to efficient decision making process or reporting to various stakeholders. So, given the fact that there are certain challenges the way things are being processed today, what is the right ingredient? What is the right way to move forward for PE and VC firms? And these are basically having a very robust approach towards creating a data infrastructure that allows investment managers to not only internal but also external databases. And in order to do that, one finds that there is a big challenge that is coming up in the industry. They are finding that private equity industry is actually looking at a pretty incredible level of inflows. And even as the world of finance is flushed with liquidity, the challenge is to deploy this capital, rapidly, while ensuring that they ensure that there are robust returns. So, given the fact that industry needs to efficiently deploy large amounts of capital that is waiting on the sidelines, efficient analytical systems would definitely potentially facilitate a quick and efficient deployment of such capital. So such an efficient delivery is possible through the intelligent dashboards that we just briefly mentioned. The system would run on the back of a healthy data infrastructure that would provide data from a single source of truth. And this could happen literally at a touch of a button, which means near real-time data. And such tools quite leverage on an expandable cloud infrastructure, which has the ability to store information which is both internal and external. And all this infrastructure then would be able to unlock value for the businesses. And basically, such an infrastructure becomes quite scalable once it's deployed. So how does this infrastructure really look like? Although this chart that is in front of you looks a bit technical, but it's quite simple, really. It can be described in basically 3 words, which is extract, transform, and load. So what has to be done here is that, obviously there are structured and unstructured data sources. And a very large part of this process is actually the extraction of the data and making it an efficient and automated process. And that has to be followed up with creating an optimal, data holding structure. And once that is loaded into the data warehouse, the next stage is creating, visualized through the visualizing tools, views and analytics that can be helpful to manage various day-to-day processes for a PE or a VC fund. So what are the day-to-day functions or operational functions that these dashboards can help us run? Now, some of these functions are basically things like pre-deal stages or due diligence process or capital raising process for the fund. It could be progress in the investment pipeline or monitoring various companies that are performing or on how they're performing, and essentially get a holistic view on how the overall fund is performing. So what we will do now is to get a more detailed view on some of these functional dashboards and demonstrate how this data can be displayed to provide a quick insight. An important functional part of PEVC business is really raising funds and also identifying potential opportunities to invest in the funds collected, which is really the business development aspect of the business. Operationally, both these processes, take a very large part, time and effort of the team, and involves various team members who have to share efforts and progress made in this running this process. And Often there is a CRM system on the backside or at the back end, but however, and the CRM systems really come with their own baggage of challenges. But one of the biggest challenge is that the data that gets captured in the CRM system sits into that literally a black box without giving much of a view, at least in a manner that can be useful, that can give useful insights. So starting off with the capital and fundraising process for LPs, we are really looking at processes such as progress in fundraise, targeted investments, deal screening, different details of related transactions, etc. So as we go through some of the dashboards that are coming up, we will see how these functions can be represented in a useful manner that will allow some of the business leaders to take effective decisions. So as we start with the first dashboard, which covers deal pipeline, which is more like a business development function, and it does involve a lot of effort on building relationships and bridges with the management of the company or the owners of the company, and it involves various resources like deal champions or fund managers who bring forward such investment opportunities to the committee. And the progress of these deals can be tracked quite seamlessly through such dashboards where uh, you know leadership can see what kind of opportunities are coming up by the month, which are the managers who are offering or getting more such deals, what sectors is more active and what sectors not so active, etc. Such information, and these are of course dashboards. Since they're intelligent, that means the views change based on what you want to watch, based on what you select. So those things are quite effective. The second dashboard is basically something that covers the actual fundraising process, and in that respect, I think the function still involves a lot of relationship building with potential investors, building getting the right connect and getting feedback. And here again, the leadership needs to track at what stages different companies, what meetings are being held, what kind of investment pipeline exists, who is the relationship manager, what kind of business interests are being, what kind of funds are attracting attention, etc. There are additional slides or let's say dashboard views for fundraising process. As you can see out here, what kind of interactions are happening, and what kind of let's say fund pipeline one can see. We can even get reasons as to why let's say any fundraising proposal is being declined. Excuse me. So moving forward, obviously there, the once the investments either through are being put through, once the investments have been decided and they get invested into portfolio companies, it is important to monitor the progress made in these businesses. And there are typically key parameters that LPs and GPs consider important indicator to the health of a business. And these dashboards present, again, very useful insights to such parameters. These can be, giving a view to the valuations of the portfolio company. It could be about getting, updates on financial numbers. It could be about operational um, uh, operational performances of similar companies, tracking developments in competing space, tracking return parameters over the life cycle of any company which is held in the portfolio. So as we go ahead and look into some of these dashboards, we'll get a better perspective in terms of how some of these functionalities get served, or at least in terms of the analytics or the insights from it. So as we can see at a company level analysis, there could be, it would be useful to know what the investment trend line has been for a portfolio company, what time, what dates were investments made, and how the aggregate investment into that company has grown over a period of time, at what valuations infusion came in from either the existing fund or certain other associated funds. There could be a comparative analysis with benchmarks in terms of performance of valuations, or that of business operations. Or there could be some recent updates in terms of what are the news relating to the business or the industry as such, and quite importantly, what is the progress of the business in terms of the value in comparison with its targeted performance. And again, very valuable in helping some of the managers strategize their business operations about the company. Well, in the same light, there is also views that shares what are the different risks relating to a specific portfolio company. That risk could be emerging from an economic risk, could be company specific risk, industry risk, or even at a macro level, whether it's political or regulatory. And these again, views will give a very effective input to the portfolio fund managers to take a call on the portfolio company. Apart from some of the risk-related parameters or investment valuation-related parameters, I think on a regular basis, portfolio managers or other stakeholders would like to know how certain basic parameters relating to balance sheet or in fact P&L have moved. What are the trends? How the business is progressing on the right side or the wrong side? Not only that, often some of these numbers provide input on key ratios, and these ratios can be put together in a very effective manner to give a very good insight in terms of how the business is progressing operationally or otherwise. There are times when certain specific companies or industries require specialized models, and even that can be facilitated by such intelligent dashboards. A case in point that we try to demonstrate is through, let's say, a DuPont analysis, which is effective in giving certain kind of input to fund managers with regard to their strategy. So while managers want to look at individual companies and businesses, it is also useful to understand how the fund is performing at an aggregate level. And again, there are intelligent dashboards that can help us form a view on it. I mean, typically a GP or an LP would want to understand what kind of cash flows or dividends that are coming up in the business. What is the rate of return that the business is generating? What are the different kinds of exposures to different sectors, and in some cases, what has been the performance by some of the exited companies, and such a dashboard, if you can see, what has been the liquidity, overall liquidity, rate of return, IRRs by various portfolio companies, etc. And this again can be viewed based on which period you want to cover, and intelligent dashboards facilitate that. So all such dashboards basically come together as a very comprehensive information system that ensures rapid dissemination of appropriate information to the stakeholders. And basically, PE and VC firms are looking to extract that insight, and they can do that by establishing a robust data infrastructure that captures both internal and external data, and kind of overlay that with a layer of intelligent dashboards, which achieves all such objectives for the firms. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we wanted to share today. And just to sort of quickly summarize what we discussed today, that is basically that data and analytics and automation processes are really, unavoidable and inevitable truth of the ecosystem today. And PE and VC businesses can gain quite immensely by adopting such changes. And the change really starts by reviewing internal and external data, and then having an ecosystem to capture it efficiently. Obviously, will create the right environment for establishing a competitive ecosystem, and preparing the firm to address challenges, not only existing, but also prepare the firm for any future challenges and opportunities. So thank you for your time today, and I would like to now hand over the stage back to Vipin to see if you have any question and answers for this particular session.
Thank you for sharing that information, Gaurav. We have several questions that has been submitted by the audience. And as a reminder to the audience, if you have any questions that you have not yet submitted, please enter it in the chat box, and we will get through as many questions as time allows. Gaurav, so the first question for you is, how is it different from Excel-based MIS?
So, the usage of data analytics and visual dashboards is quite significantly different from Excel-based systems. And as I covered in my presentation earlier on, uh, while Excel has been a very powerful tool for businesses to, help in investment decision making, but as things stand today, there is a lot more dynamic data which is available. And in order to leverage on that data, it is important uh, for any system to be able to rapidly, first of all, ingest that data and give out insights from it. And unfortunately, Excel is not able to do that, whereas some of the data analytics and intelligent dashboards is able to sort of give out fairly useful and effective results with it.
Okay. And the second question is, how will you secure our data?
So data security is, I would say, probably even heightened by using such systems, because I mean, the data really stays within the four walls of the organization, or let's say firewalls at a cloud infrastructure, and it prevents individual Excel files being forwarded over emails, etc. So in fact, security gets heightened even more, And so while we are processing more data, we are getting rapid output. Um, uh, the data and information remains absolutely secure under such an environment.
Okay. Can you do this analysis for public companies?
Um, well, most certainly. I mean, in fact, most of this infrastructure is devised for conducting analytics on private companies, which we all know that is a lot more challenging, especially the ability to get information on it. A lot of times we need to incorporate information from public companies, which is a lot more easily available. So to answer your specific question, public companies can very easily be incorporated such a monitoring and analytical and system with intelligent dashboards.
The last question is, what is the usual timeline for operationalizing such a project?
So the time taken for setting up such infrastructure really depends upon the scale of operations. Having said that, there is certain basic amount of time that is required uh, uh, to establish the database structures, the normalized structures, the warehouse, and also understanding various sources of information and data. In our experience, typically that extends anywhere between 3 to 6 months of deployment period, really depending upon the scale of output we are dealing with.
Okay. Thank you for that information. Thank you everyone who joined us for today's webinar. And Gaurav, thank you for sharing your insight and expertise. If you
My
have
pleasure.
any additional question, would you like to connect directly with Decimal Points team, you can either reach out directly using the contact information on this slide, or you can reach out via our website or LinkedIn. And thank you for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.